Hello, athletes and fans of Primetime Muscle. On this episode, we mention conditioning as one of the main criteria in order to be competitive on stage.
Hello and welcome to Primetime Muscle. I'm Tim Wilkins, as always joined by the real deal, Chris Cormier.
Yes, what's up, guys? What's up?
Looking good today, as always.
Thank you, my brother.
IFBB judge and mega promoter Tarek El-Guindi.
Great to be here. Super special guest, Tim.
Super special guest. Okay, in a sport of giants, there are only a few bigs. We've had the big nasty, Ronnie. There's big Rami right now. And there's only one big Steve. IFBB head judge of 15 years, chairman of the Northeast. You may have seen him in Pumping Iron 2. And we've been excited for weeks with you joining us.
I'm so happy to be here.
Well, we have a lot to talk about with the Olympia literally around the corner.
Right.
And we are looking at the competitors, looking across the top layer and really looking at what it is they can improve on from last year to either hold their title like Big Rami or what they can do to improve to move up a spot or two or take the title away.
Let's do it.
Big Rami, let's start with this one.
Big Rami last year was very disappointing in prejudging. Was not in the condition he should have been in. He honestly was lucky he squeaked out a win. Brandon Curry was all over him. He has to come in condition. I think he worries too much about being Big Rami instead of lean, mean Rami. Excuse me, and that hurt him. He did not look good at prejudging. He looked better at the night show, and that saved him. If he looked the same way he looked prejudging at night show, I believe Brandon would have been Mr. Olympia.
Ooh, that's big because, you know, a lot of people were saying, okay, the returning champion always is going to be ahead of the game, you know, going into, I don't know for sure, but I'm just saying, that's what people say, Steve. Don't look at me like
People
that.
say a lot of things.
People say stuff, I know.
They always
So, you know, but everyone was wondering, is this going to be the year he get taken out? Is this going to be the year that he loses it? Look at Brandon coming. Look at the guys behind him. I mean, look at the champion. It's not looking, you know, is he becoming like Muhammad Ali in his old age? Does he want to do it again? And how, you know, what type of heart does he have of a champion to actually, you know, are you going to fix this? Are you going to be better? Come back at the night show and show us what you're about type of thing.
So look at it, Rami. Was it just conditioning?
Yes. I mean, size and shape he has, but when he came in as big as he did, his shape actually hurt him, and his condition hurt him. When he's lean, he has beautiful shape. When he comes in a little too big, it throws his shape off.
Well, I know we've all been talking about the pictures that, you know, we didn't have this back in the 80s and 90s where there was social media. You had to wait 3 months past after a show and go, oh, he looked good.
Right.
But with this, we're watching the progress of a diet all the way up to the big day.
Yes.
And starting about 6 to 8 weeks ago, he looked insane. They were posting this at 336 was his top, but conditioned.
The pictures I saw of Rami, he looks extremely dangerous.
What could he do different, or what could actually go wrong for him being so far out, you know, in condition? To overconfidence or something like that?
I don't know if it's overconfident. He's a pretty level-headed guy. I think he could maybe over-diet and come in maybe too small, which I seriously doubt Big Rami can do.
298, is that what we're talking too small?
You know, start looking a little lean,
right?
Which would hurt his shape, or come in too big like he did last year.
Well, let's move on to this next one if we can. Let's look at, I believe, Brandon Curry, and we're going to look at what he can do. Like you said, if it's just a matter of coming in sharper, is it a matter of, was there a little more size to put on to stay competitive?
He was in great condition. He has great shape. He could still use a little more leg. If he could bring his legs up just a little bit, and he did from last year, if he brings them up just a little more, he's a dangerous guy. He's a guy you can't discount him.
Chris talks about.
Yeah, I thought when he first made that run at improving his physique a few years ago, when he was out in Kuwait, when he first made that jump, you know, I think from a judging standpoint, if I were a judge, I felt like you guys were like happy to see that, happy to see him make an improvement this late in the game. Is that what you guys thinking? Or?
Absolutely. I mean, he's got a great body. He's a former Mr. Olympia. I mean, he's not someone we could discount at all.
So you guys have a large respect for of someone who's shown that they have beat the best in the world already.
Absolutely.
Well, that was
Let me
always
just say, anyone on that stage we have respect.
Well, I
for.
understand that,
Even
but I'm
that,
just saying. But,
he
you know,
is a dangerous guy.
Yeah,
He's very
it's in your
dangerous.
mind that this
like you're
person-
saying Muhammad Ali, he could be Joe Frazier.
Yeah. He's a hard hitter.
You know, Steve brought up a great point. You know, we respect all these guys. We know the sacrifice that they go through to go on stage. And a lot of times, Chris, we've seen these guys turning pro. You know, Brandon Curry turned pro in 2008 at the USA's. I remember he was wearing red trunks, and he had struggling years in his career. And obviously, all of us judges, we are human beings. We like to see people prevail and succeed. So it's special to see everybody. You know, even Big Ramy, there was years where he was a big disappointment and he wouldn't be able to nail his conditioning. A lot of people gave up on him, and he came back in 2020 and really put on a good show.
Steve, if you follow the show, you'll know that Chris locks eyes with a lot of competitors, and Tarek, for some reason, remembers what color trunks they were wearing. I don't know where they're
He
focusing.
does. I was thinking about that.
Always
You are paying a
remember.
close attention to those crotches.
He was in yellow
Steve,
trunks.
all up in the
up on
groin.
that.
You're
You
all up in-
remember some
but
of
you're a
those
judge and you're
moments,
looking
right?
up and you
I
got
remember
that
moments,
groin.
but I don't remember colors of trunks.
No one, yeah. See, you got a thing with that.
Yeah.
You like the groin area.
I'll look and go, you know what? His chest improved year over year. And Tarek's going, yeah, those green trunks just didn't flatter his eyes.
And I'm talking about a decade ago.
And now I'm looking at a picture of Brandon. I could say
But that
he had
can't-
blue trunks last year.
Yeah.
He looked good.
So-
I didn't even see a picture of that.
Well, let's take a look at third place last year, who has been around that spot for the last couple of years, People's Champion, and that is Hadi Chupan.
Hadi comes in great condition all the time. He's an amazing athlete, great conditioning. Hopefully he could just fix a couple of little things he has, like with his shoulders. And honestly, he's a threat for that title. He really is. He is a serious threat.
One of the things that I like about Hadi is he is, in my personal opinion, the best poser. He hits the poses with a lot of conviction and he gets your attention. It's something that the other competitors should look and try to improve. He's one of those guys that commands the stage pretty well. Like Steve said, you know, the shoulders can be a little bit overpowering on the physique, and if he fixes that, he can definitely be a contender.
Steve, do you like to see competitors? I mean, obviously, like to see him hit the pose correctly, and that's when we're okay. He's hitting that. He's getting the most out of his physique in this pose. But do you like to see him aggressively, like, boom, hit that shot hard? Do you like to see that, or do you?
I
like
don't mind aggressive hitting. What I don't like is elbows.
I know you don't like.
I
them
don't like
elbows.
people elbowing people. There's no need for it. It's a non-contact sport.
Previous episode, we were actually talking about Kai and Phil.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not necessary.
Right.
Talk to me about that moment, Steve, because in the end of the day, it was your voice and your command that really separated both of them. But it was a critical moment in the history of the Mr. Olympia. Two guys facing each other, very close to
Face
getting
off, nose to
physical,
nose.
and all eyes are on you. What is Big Steve gonna do? Do you remember that moment? Can you?
Yeah, I just told him to stop, knock it off. Separate and knock it off, and we just stopped the show until they calmed down.
Did you have a conversation with each one of them afterwards?
Yes. And they honestly, it was the heat of the moment. I mean, Kai's fighting for his life, Phil's fighting for his title. I mean, I understand why they did it, but there's still no place for it.
And then have you seen? I mean, I remember there's little knocks here and there back in the day, but are you seeing more of that now? So
No, because we don't stand for it.
right,
We really don't.
Zero
We separate
tolerance.
them. As soon as they start, I stop, separate them, and then make them hit the poses again. Like, no elbows. There's no reason for elbows. But as far as posing aggressively, that's fine. And I think, like what you just said before about Hadi being a great poser, Ramy last year, if you remember, was the first one in his pose and the last one out of his pose. And that's what I like. I like when I call a front double bicep, they're in their pose and they hold it. They don't go from a front double bicep to like maybe a most muscular. Hit the pose, sit on the pose, wait for the next pose.
And do you score more points by more wound ups you do? Because these people are winding up their arm.
I don't pay no attention to it.
Yeah. So if I do like 10 wind ups, you're not gonna
Wasting your time.
You waste. That's what I was saying.
The sooner you get to the pose, the
Exactly,
more time
yeah.
you give the judges
Yeah.
a chance to look at you
Fidgeting around,
at your
yeah.
best. You know?
Right, because we're only going to hold that pose for so long. front double bicep, front lat spread, you're going to miss being judged. We're not up there waiting for you to go through your 10 consecutive loops.
And the physique guys.
Honestly, we just judge the front and the back. If they
Right.
want to do like a nice transition, I like that. But as far as doing a whole routine, I personally don't like it.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you too, because as a physique guy, I try to tell these guys, the longer you're up there putting on your shenanigans and thinking you're a guest poser as a physique guy, the more they're going to have time to pick you apart.
Or not look at your body if it's a good body.
Or being, yeah.
I would say if you want to do shenanigans, you probably don't have a good body because you're hiding it. If you want to get into that first pose
and hit,
do a couple of transitions into your back pose, that's great. But if you start doing a routine, it's a waste of time.
And from the NPC level to the IFBB Pro League, you're looking at a show that could have 15, 20, 25 people. You don't have time for all this 45 seconds to a minute poser.
NPC shows, we could have 40 guys.
Yeah.
But look, the Olympia is going to be used this year because we have so many months for qualifying. There's going to be a ton of guys this year.
Yeah.
You want to get in your pose and hold it as fast as possible.
Anybody historically that you would have guys looking at as far as posers, like let's talk about physique, where you could say, hey, I would be studying this guy because the judges prefer his style. Is it a Buendia? Is it Mark Anthony? Which guy historically do you say, all right, this is a good example? Brandon.
Honestly, Brandon's great. Most of the top guys have it. You know what I mean? There's very few of the guys that are in the top 5 or top 6 that play around too much. They do their couple of transitions and they get right into it because they know we're judging them. I mean, it's go time.
Yeah.
There's no time to play around.
Well, there is more time to play around on this episode of Primetime Muscle as we go through the rest of the top, let's say 10, and the improvements they could make to move up that ladder at this year's Olympia when we come back.
People always ask how I got here. I was willing to work just a little harder than everyone else. Every damn day. If I can have hundreds of hours back, you know I'm gonna grab them. Spending hours prepping chicken, rice, and vegetables, F that. I rely on perfect nutrition. I rely on Trifecta.
And we're back with our special guest today, Steve Weinberger. 13 years as the IFBB Pro League head judge at the Olympia. You've seen it all, and this year going in as we start to really focus in on who could be moving up from last year. We're going to look at Hunter Labrada now.
Right.
We've talked extensively on the show about his update pictures and his guest posing in Mexico a few weeks ago. What does he have to do to make that leap up the ladder a point or two?
I'm looking at the picture right now with him, and I think he's done it. I think he needed more size. He has great shape, great conditioning. He needed more size this year to move up, and I believe he did it. And I think, it'll be really fun to judge him and see if he can crack into that top 3.
Just to have a little fun with it.
Okay, let's have some fun.
Shall we? Who would you think would win out of him and his dad in the bodybuilding contest? If they're
In what day?
Today.
He would. He would beat his father.
Ooh.
Sorry, Lee. I love you, Lee.
I knew that answer, but I just want to see what you thought because you're the mind.
I had a chance to watch Hunter Labrada, and his dad was there. He guest posed in Mexico, and he is much bigger than last year, and that waist still small.
He is a threat.
Hunter is that hybrid guy that has the mass, has the lines. If he's conditioned, he can really be a threat.
But you talk about you're being Archie Manning, and you've got all these little Mannings running around. There's no way you're not going to be a world-class quarterback. You've got a bigger physique on a bigger frame, and your dad's helping one of the greatest posers of all time.
And have you seen his dad recently?
I trained with him a couple months ago at their gym.
He looks amazing.
Amazing.
I can't believe he is, of all the old bodybuilders, he's in the best shape.
And he's got your style, by the way. So to already have that, I think he's 61, 62 now.
I think he's 61.
And looks insanely good.
Unbelievable condition.
Yeah.
Unbelievable condition.
And so content with where he is as a former but still amazing physique.
He was always a great champion, and he's still a great champion. Always a class act, always.
Yeah. And his shows are phenomenal. So it's going to be interesting to see what Hunter brings to the Olympia this year.
Definitely.
Where he ranks in the top 5. Next up in this top 5, we tend to forget Nick Walker. These update pictures, they call him the mutant for a good reason.
Right.
He's got no problem with vascularity ever.
There's no problem with vascularity on Nick. Nick is a mass monster. Shape is not his forte. His forte is muscle and conditioning. And we'll see what he looks like this year. I mean, I don't know if he could honestly improve on his shape. If he can, I'll take my hat off to him. But he's got that body that is just like a monster, just a dinosaur, full of muscle and full of veins.
Yeah, what I saw is he had some improvement as far as like each muscle group improved a little bit this year.
How did his stomach look?
He's been wearing that Kamabon.
Okay.
So that's been bringing it in a little bit. We wasn't wearing that back in the day.
No.
But a lot of these guys are doing that these days, and I think it's bringing it in a little bit. So I'm just kind of curious how if he can get a little bit more refinement. I would like to see more refinement.
I agree. That's what he needs. He already has the mass.
Yeah, and this refinement now. But I think he's paid close attention to his diet throughout the year, and I think that's going to help him in the long run.
Historically, he kind of reminds me of with that block of muscle, like a Marcus Rule.
Absolutely. He's a better version of Marcus Rule. He has better shape than Marcus Rule, but he has that Marcus Rule muscularity. He really does.
And it does look like, though, he has toned his waist down or grown that.
That's what he needed to do the most, because his waist was a little bit on the thick side, to tell you the truth, and that's how Hunter bypassed him last year.
I mean, if you're looking at it from a judging standpoint, and you can only judge what you see, it's not like, okay, I know he don't have a formidable waistline, but it actually looks that I'm judging. I mean, is that going through your mind? Like, what goes through a judge's mind?
What goes through my mind is I go through each individual pose. Mm-hmm. And who looks better in a front double bicep? And it doesn't matter what size your waist is. Your waist could be 2 inches bigger, but if your back is 2 inches wider, it's going to look the same, so it doesn't matter. So honestly, I'm not saying, oh, he's got a smaller waist, he wins. No. It's the symmetry and proportions of your physique that I compare to the bodies next to you.
So let's say if you're like sometimes there is a person who have a longer chest, the way they proportionalize with their delts and arms, back, all that stuff. So is that a better look for you, a longer, a shorter chest, or just the way it looks compared to another competitor?
It depends on condition next to the other competitor and what it looks like on that physique. There are some guys that have a long torso. It doesn't look very pleasing. Where a guy with a shorter torso would look more pleasing. In the same condition, the shorter torso would win.
So let's take a look at this next guy. It is someone we forget quite often, which we very well shouldn't, because he's been a fixture in the top 5 and top 10 for a long time everywhere, including the Arnold, where he's 1 and 2 off and on for years. William Bonac, and you look at his lead-up pictures, where did he need to improve last year, and do we think he's done it? He
needs more size. I felt like maybe he didn't have enough time to train. He has the shape, he has the muscles. He just needs more size. He's lost size, especially in his legs. He has to bring his legs back up, and that's what he needs to do to be a threat this year. He needs to bring those legs up.
And I do think that, a lot of times we forget about William Bonac, but it wasn't too long ago this guy was second place at the Mr. Olympia, and this guy was second place at the Arnold this year. So he has the experience. I think he knows his body and his conditioning. And based on some of the pictures, maybe he's added some size. So I think nobody should be sleeping on this competitor. If he comes a little bit bigger, then you can start putting him and comparing him with Hadi and some of those guys and say, hey, Bonac is as formidable as anybody.
Oh, I still think he compares with Hadi and those guys. Mm-hmm. I still do, but to beat those guys, he needs to bring those legs up.
So that leads a lot of people to their next question, because they love the mass in this division. This is why they want the bigger, better, beaster.
Yes.
So you start putting the young guns up against him. Hunter, Nick, Ian, now Blessing and Andrew, that are just big. How does he overcome that?
With bigger legs. He's a veteran. He knows what he's doing. I'm sure he's going to come in with bigger legs. He talks to everyone. He listens. He takes advice. He's a very humble man. I'm sure he's going to come in with big legs this year. Yeah, from the pictures I saw of him, he looked really good.
Really good.
Yeah, I saw him. He's a lot bigger. I saw him in Dubai, But what I noticed was, as you see when he had the legs came down a little bit more, I see him more balanced. I see his abs are improved, chest, arms. I think the chest is a little bit bigger now, which I thought he needed in my perspective of his physique. And I think he made a lot of vast improvements, and I think the judges are going to be very, I think they're going to be very interested in how he fares with the guys that placed ahead of him last year, because he was a little off, and he still plays pretty damn good.
I have a question for you, Steve. 1999 Mr. Olympia, you had some of the greatest bodybuilders of all times. You had Ronnie Coleman, Flex Wheeler, Sean Ray, Kevin Levrone, Milos Sarcev was there. I'm not mentioning his name. Oh, Steve, come on. So we had all these guys.
I'm like...
But there is a talk. We might be looking at this lineup and saying, hey, some of those guys that placed 4th or 5th, they ended up winning Mr. Olympias. My question to you is this. Based on what you see, this lineup, these new guys, we're talking about, Big Ramy, Andrew Jack, Hadi, Brandon, Hunter, Nick. Do you see this as one of the deepest Mr. Olympia lineups of all times?
Going back to 1999, yes. This is a very, very steep lineup. It's going to be very hard to get into that top 10. Very hard. And the top 5, I love judging like this. I love when it's really hard. The harder, the better.
So over the last couple of years, but especially last year, the top 5 to 7 were pulling water a lot pre-judge night.
Right.
They're sweating, the tan's running, everybody. I know everybody has a coach, everybody has a guru,
yes.
But with your extensive experience and running the East Coast Mecca for 25, 30, how long?
36.
36 years. I forget how, you look a lot younger.
I'm old.
What should these guys be doing other than posing? What should they be doing so that doesn't happen night of, so they're ready on Thursday and not ready Saturday morning?
Well, like you say, Friday night, usually they all come in and they're all full of water. I think they all worry to play that size game, including Ramy, who is the king of size. Condition kills. That's what they need to remember. Condition kills. A 220-pound Bonac will beat a 230-pound Bonac all day long, or whatever weight you want to take it. Condition kills. And that's what everybody has to remember. It's not the size, it's the condition.
That's what I'm saying. See, I always learn a lot when I hear Steve talk, and I'm always sharpening my skills and my knowledge of the sport that I love so much, and I don't learn so much from Tarek, but I do a lot from Steve.
I'm glad you learned from somebody. We're still hoping that fulfills its promise.
Only the best. Yeah. Only the best.
Thank you, Steve.
Well, it is a very interesting top 6, top 10. You have a bunch of new guys in a minute that we're going to be talking about as well, and how they may or may not impact that top 6. So the takeaway from this top 6 is conditioning. Only a couple needed size in really minor places.
Very minor.
So that is going to be so interesting. And then there's a couple of that 7, 8, 9 guys, and a couple of these new guys that could mix up that top 5 too.
Yes, the top 6 guys really, I think, made their moves. And it looks like William really protected himself by coming in with bigger legs. And these young guns are going to have a hard time breaking these guys down.
Bonac's arms look massive in those up-eight pictures.
He has the best arms. His arms are unbelievable. Shoulders and arms, as good as anybody in the sport.
Well, we are going to talk about those young guns and what impact they may have on this Olympia coming up very quickly. We'll be talking about that when we come back with Primetime Muscle. All right, Primetime Muscle with Tim Wilkins, Tarek Elgindy, Chris Cormier, and our very special guest, Steve Weinberger. Today, we're wrapping up some of the new guys, starting off with Andrew Jacked. And there was so much hype, and these guys talked a lot of trash coming in, and they lived up to it.
They did. Andrew Jack, I saw him in
Vegas?
yes, in Vegas at the at Flex Lewis's gym,
Yeah.
and I was very impressed. I mean, for a big guy and a tall guy to be really pretty much filled out was very impressive. He had a huge back, huge chest, huge arms. He's a threat. He really is a threat. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people.
Okay, so I see a lot of the warm-up, the preview pictures where people are showing their stuff,
Yes.
and they come to show you to get your feedback. They always look a little more impressive standing next to Hani than they do standing next to you. But what kind of reality is it on Andrew on his first Olympia?
If he could break into the top 8, he won, in my opinion. I still think he needs more legs and more size overall because he's such a tall guy. But if he breaks into that top 8, to me, he's a winner.
Yes, I'm very impressed just because you know he won all the shows that came before him so far. So he hasn't really lost. Yeah, you don't really know what that's like. So I would like to see if he just improve that whole backside. I think he can really, you know, even close out even closer to 6 would be awesome to see for him. You know, but you know, I would still, I don't know. If it were me, I would like to put a lot of these guys in a call out to where it's like, okay, everyone knows that this person and that person had words going into the show and all that stuff. Without the
always
elbow,
get a call. You'll
without the
always
elbow,
get a call out of the words.
Right.
You'll always get a call out. Honestly.
Right.
Okay, so here we are. Let's change to this next look and this next athlete because that's one of my requests from you. We would like to see Ian and Blessing next to each other for the call out of the words.
I'll try to get them together.
All right, let's try
I
to
would
do
appreciate that.
Put in a little kite.
Now, the interesting thing is, you know, like Steve said, the top 6 guys, they have made a move and they have made improvements. And Steve said, listen, if Andrew Jack places 8th, it would be a win for him.
Right.
Now, look at how deep this lineup is, because if you keep those 6 guys in the same placings or you move them around, but it's the same 6 guys, and you have Andrew Jack in 6, you have to assume that a guy like Ian Valier, Derek Lunsford, or Blessing are in 7th, or somebody else.
Behind, yeah.
But if one of them is in 7th, then you're talking about Ian Valier in 9th or Derek Lunsford in 9th. That's how deep this lineup is. I find it incredible that we're having a Mr. Olympia at one of the best venues, the Zappos Theater, and we have one of the deepest lineups. Steve, I keep telling these guys all the time, and I might be wrong, but I doubt it. This will be one of the greatest Mr. Olympias of all time.
So
I agree with you.
let's talk about Derek because I think it was March, April.
When he guest posed at Jim Mannion's Pittsburgh show, I honestly nearly fell off my chair. I couldn't believe he went from 212 champion to I think he weighed about 260. His shape was unbelievable. His stomach was in. I knew he was going in the open because there was no way he can come down to 212. He honestly shocked the hell out of me.
It was what
blown away.
him and Nick that jumped on stage when
Right,
Rami
and
couldn't make it.
Nick looked great, but the improvement that Derek made was outstanding. Unbelievable. I mean, we're talking about 40 pounds of muscle.
Now, late October, early November, Derek posted a picture. You see a lot of pictures of him training, but he posted a picture of him posing.
Yes.
The conditioning 6-7 weeks out was insane. The symmetry, the balance.
You said it. His symmetry and balance makes him very dangerous to everybody. He has unbelievable symmetry and balance.
That's one thing that stood out to me is his symmetry and balance, like you said. And when they walked around on the stage, 'cause I was there, when they walked around on the stage, it was clear to see that was his strength, because it was even standing next to some formidable champions that won the Arnold Classic, won the Olympia, won, you know, been top 2 or 3 in every show they ever done as, you know, as a competitor, and he still was, to me, I mean, you could just see it.
Even his waistline.
Yeah. It
Guy's
was tight.
250
It
and his
nice.
stomach was
Yeah.
tight. I honestly was blown away.
I saw some striations in the quads.
Out of everyone this year getting ready for the show, he impressed me the most for improvements. If I had to give a most improved, I'd give it to Derek.
So, and you get a guest poser sometimes, and he wasn't a planned guest poser.
No, he wasn't supposed to guest post because Rami couldn't make it. Jim Mannion asked him to do a favor, and no one's going to say no to Jim. he jumped on stage and he just blew everyone away. We didn't even know, we might not have even seen him if it wasn't for Rami not showing up. This would have been, just waiting to see the pictures on the internet.
And sometimes you have a planned guest poser that shows up. It's one of your favorite pros, but he's way off season.
Oh, I hate that.
Water buffalo time. Doesn't look like he works out at all. And
Right.
Derek didn't know he was even going to be guest posing.
That's the amazing
He's
part.
5 months post-Olympia in the 212s, shirt off and just veiny and symmetrical.
Steve, in your opinion, you've been around the sport. You've seen a lot of people get a special invite, and some people, they he and haw about do they deserve it or not. And a lot of these times, competitors are they're not in shape yet. But I feel like he looked so good. He deserved one like right away that night, right?
Honestly, when I saw him, I was thinking he belongs in the Open.
Right.
There's no way he belongs in the 212.
Right.
It's not even fair. It's just, he's unbelievable. If he would have stayed in the 212, he would have had a run like Flex. But I think, honestly, he's not a top 10 guy. He is a dangerous guy in that upper echelon of the Mr. Olympia.
Well, so I had a chance to judge Derek Lunsford as an amateur. And I remember weighing him as a light heavy, 198 and a quarter. And I called all the light heavies, and he lined up at the Embassy Suites in Las Vegas. And I said, I called light heavies. And he goes, I'm a light heavy. And one thing that shocked me was how large his clavicle bones are to his waist.
Yes.
He not only wins the light heavy, but he goes in the overall against Patrick, who's won pro shows, two-time California champion, and he beats Patrick, who's a super heavy.
Patrick Moore?
Patrick Moore. He beats him as a light heavy, and he looks bigger. Jacob Wilson took the heavyweight. So right from the beginning of his career, there was something about Derek having that wow factor, which I believe is the massive clavicle bones, and he still has that waist. I think he could potentially be one of the few competitors to win the 212 and definitely make a move in the Open.
All right, let's look at this next guy because we are in such a deep lineup, and it's another one of these new up-and-comers. You're talking about Blessing.
Right. I can't believe the improvements he made, but he still needs to bring those legs up. He's brought him up. He's done a great job. I didn't think he could do what he did so far. If he continues, Andrew Jack better be careful.
But the symmetry, is it the legs need improvement as much, or the upper body is so stellar and so big?
No, I honestly think look at his legs, if you can see in the picture.
Yeah.
He needs more sweep. He needs more hamstrings. He needs more legs.
Chris, you're big on hammies. You're big on the hammies.
Going ham. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Steve totally. That's the glaring weakness. He does come along with the energy, and he has the personality.
He has a great personality.
And so
we need more people like him in the sport to fire up the sport. I mean, he's got a mouth and a half.
Mouth and had the Olympia TV one night with a lot of good back and forth.
Well, listen, he has said stuff that I have in the can that I'm scared. I'm scared to put it out there. I'm going to have to call Steve, call Jim, Jake, and say, guys, can this go out? Because he said some stuff that's unprecedented. He is very confident, and like Steve said, he brings a lot of energy. And one time I did a live for Olympia TV. I invited him and Ian Valier. And Ian said, well, is this going to be tense? And I said, no, Ian, we're going to keep it composed. And Blessing, on the other hand, said, Tarek, I just do the live if I go after that guy. And I said, we can't do that. I had to call George Farah and say, George, help me out with this guy, And they controlled themselves for a little bit, but then I had, yeah.
Well, no, it all devolved. So we had all these people on the Zoom. I was on that call, but when they called me in advance, they said, we're going to have everybody on a Zoom. It'll look like the Brady Bunch, but we need you to be Alice in the middle to break everybody up when they fight. So, and then Nick Walker jumped on.
Yeah.
That was a great night.
Well, Ian Valier said, I'm not a punk. You're not going to say negative things about me on the internet. And if you do, you're going to hear back from me. And then I get a text message from Nick Walker saying, I want to get in this live. I send him the invitation, and as soon as Nick Walker appears on the live, Blessing Awodipo says, hey, Brick. And I was like, oh, God.
Oh,
but
man.
you know what? That adds excitement to the sport. It really does. It adds a little fun to it,
Yeah.
So I got to ask you this, because we looked at a lot of these pictures from last year to see how they can improve. These young guns, their pictures are from this year. But a guy you recently judged in Prague this year, Michael Krizo.
Michael Krizo has shoulders and arms that I've never seen before. Unbelievable. Great body. He has to improve his back. If he gets his back to match the rest of his body, everybody better watch out. But he still needs to work on that back.
And conditioning, this is another lesson, I guess, as a rookie coming
in. Excuse me.
No, you're good.
Interrupting. His conditioning was not great in Prague, and I spoke to him, and he was holding back, dialing in for the Olympia.
That's bold.
You
haven't won yet, and you're
honestly too bold. He should have won all that. I do agree. I do agree.
You've got to qualify for the Super Bowl. I'm not going to try to. I'm not going to try to beat the teams leading up to
my quarterback.
I don't want to injure my quarterback.
Right.
Yeah. That's. I think that was the Buffalo Bills that tried that.
Yes.
4 times in a row. We have the deepest lineup probably ever. A beautiful venue, a stunning venue. We're so excited, and we are so grateful that you could come and just hang out with us. And
I had a great time. You guys are fun.
Well, and we got to say this: having you, Jim and Tyler, Mannion, Sandy, this is the people that really are the heart and soul of the league, that run things, that do all the best judging and guide the future of the sport with your judging. Because that's really, I mean, we talked about that with Sandy, but I mean, tell us a little bit about that real quick, about how when you say this is the premier for classic, or this is what we're looking for wellness, how that shapes the next generation.
Well, everyone looks who the champions are, and they all emulate them. I mean, so when we pick a Mr. Olympia in any division, or Miss Olympia in any division, they're like, well, that's what I have to look like. I mean, that sets the stage. I mean, the Mr. Olympia sets the stage for the whole sport.
Every kid in the gym's got that porn stash now, thanks to Bumstead. So, thanks, Chris.
I can't believe how popular he is. He is, honestly, I think he's our most popular athlete. He is unbelievable.
Steve, I have one question. Just gonna put you on a hot seat.
All right.
You ready?
Yes.
You got one show, one Mr. Olympia. Most impressive. You walked away from there like, holy shit, you see that. Mr. Olympia 91, Mr. Olympia 93. Which one?
93.
93.
Yeah.
You were there. You felt, what did you feel about it?
Unbeatable.
Crazy.
91 was unbelievable too. Don't get me wrong, but 93 was just not even human. Not even human.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
Tarek El-Gindi, the one and only Chris Cormier.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming, Steve. It's been great.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
Thank you.
You know, we look back, was 91, 93, 99, 2004. You never know when that year is going to be the greatest year of the Olympia. And as we talk about the depth of this lineup, the venue across all divisions, is this going to be the greatest year, and were you going to be there? That's up to you. We're just right around the corner from the Olympia. Beautiful Zappos Theater, December 15th to the 18th. Like, share, subscribe. As always, tell your friends. We thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Primetime Muscle.